I'm Judy Lindell, and I guess I connect mostly with Deanna and our son Steve. We're good friends back in high school, and I know she came to his wedding out in Maine, and yes, so through the years it's been through the families.
Tom Kratz, I was part of the A-team, usher team on Prince of Peace for 50 years. And Sandy talked with Jackie, so there was another connection. Merv and I meet for coffee Wednesdays for about 10 years, 12 years.
I'm Polly Force. Basically, we've met Merv here at Lexington Landing, but we know Deanna and her husband from Gloria Day lived in church. I've since found out that Merv lived very close to where my brother and sister-in-law lived in St. Anthony Park.
I'm Annie Nickelmo, and I met Merv because he lived on the same, we lived just down the other end of the hall.
I'm her husband, Glenn, and through the ministry of many years, I've known Merv, and it's been fun getting reacquainted here at Lexington Landing.
I'm Harry Force, and I met him, I believe, the first time at Gloria Day Church. We're all members.
I'm Dorothy Safry, and we are also residents here at Lexington Landing. And Deanna and the rest, those of us that meet almost weekly at Gloria Day.
I'm Roy Santry, fourth floor person, and we met Merv early on when we moved in here. And the firsts and us and we sit in the first 2 or 3 rows at Gloria Day.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to add a couple other things, if they're so unusual, that his parents and my dad, or his dad, both directed the seminary choir, and his parents were married at St. John's in Northfield, 1940 on June 7th or 10th? Oh, June 4th, okay. And my parents were married at St. John, 1940, same time, and June 10th. And our cemetery plots with Rick and all 3 of ours, they're within kind of just same place. So, and there's even more too, but it's just fun to find out that he was good friends with my cousins.
I'm Gwendolyn Newman. I live here, and let's see, I look at Merv's balcony. It has 2 empty flower pots, and I keep trying to encourage him that he needs to have some life out there. Skip it up. I did give him a plant at one time, and then I had to watch it slowly die.
I'm Judy Durfee. I live on the 4th floor right next door to Merv, and maybe I have an extra pot and a plant he might have if he promises to water it.
Bad chance.
Bad chance.
Well, the people at this table are from the early birds, so we usually eat breakfast with Merv.
Not usually, every day.
Every day we eat breakfast with Merv, and he always keeps us laughing, so we walk into the day with happiness.
I'm Tom Staley. On about the fourth day of my arrival here, I was invited to the center table at the breakfast dining room, and that's the point that I met Merv.
It's been downhill ever since, right?
I'm Kathy Hansen, and I'm related to Hannah through marriage. And the joke that Merv always tells is that he hired me to be the organist at Prince of Peace 53 years ago. And that's how he had got his job, because he had to have an organist. So, which is really a joke, because I think you may have heard of Hannah Hansen before.
I'm Han Hansen, and Merv and I worked together for many years at Prince of Peace in Burnsville.
Tom Walker's, Merv and his family and my family lived across the street from one another. So we watched our children grow up together and went through the highs and the lows of that. I got a message from Merv. A guy your age found a frog in the woods. "Kiss me," said the frog, "and I will turn into a beautiful princess and do anything you want." The man picked up the frog, put it in his pocket. "Hey," the frog said, "I'll do anything you want." "Nah," the man said, "at my age, I'd rather have a talking frog."
I'm Joe Horst. I first met Merv when he was preaching at the funeral, and gotten to know each other since. We played a lot of racquetball together on Wednesday afternoons for maybe almost 20 years. And Merv my kids and the family went to Prince of Peace, and I was a Catholic. And Merv adopted me, saying Prince of Peace needed a token Catholic.
I'm Sally Crowell, and our family lived right behind Merv and Jackie. And from beginning of baby times up to now, it's been kind of like one family. The kids used to walk up the deck and just open the door and go down and play Barbies and whatever. And we just consider them our family too.
How many Barbies did Noel have?
Yeah, I would say it.
He wasn't invited.
I'm Allison, Sally's daughter, and I grew up with Deanna and Noel and you. And all I can say is I heard your laugh, and it just brought me way back 50 years ago. So nice to be here.
One of the memories we have is camping up by Lake Superior. It rained for 3 days, and we each had tent trailers. And Mark, Sally's husband, got out there early Sunday morning, and he yelled as loud as he could, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it."
Yes. Let's get the hell out.
Yeah, let's get the hell out. I didn't want to go there.
I'm Pat Johnson Carroll, and I went to college with Merv, and his wife Jackie was my first college roommate. And along with three of our other friends, we've kept the connection this whole time through the years, watched our kids get married, and just enjoyed wonderful times together.
I'm John Carroll, her husband, and I've known Merv probably since 1965 or thereabouts.
Yep.
We shared hockey tickets for the North Stars together.
That's right.
And a number of other things, and then Merv was our pastor in Duluth for a number of years after that, or a few years, so.
Yep.
I'm Gordy Olson, and first learned to know Merv and Jackie through their son Noel, who was a student of mine at Minnehaha Academy. So we got to know you when you were at Prince of Peace. And then over the years, we've kind of connected a little bit here and there, but really connected when we moved to Northfield and now attend Bethel Lutheran there, and Merv comes down quite often for services, and we get together often. It's been a real pleasure to get to know Merv. It's great. This is my wife, Betty.
Great, we're almost done. We're skipping family right now because we're gonna have some things to say, but we'll move. Oh yeah, here.
Hi, I'm Rule Freeze. I'm a resident here. And one of the first days that I was here, I went to breakfast and sat down at this middle table and thought immediately, this guy must be a Lutheran pastor. I'm a Methodist pastor.
My name is John Wenzel. My connection to Merv started through his daughter and then his two granddaughters, and I have trouble with names. So it was L.A., Linnea, Annika, and that's the way I kept them straight. Then Jackie moved into the apartment next to ours, and I knew Jackie. And soon after that, Merv was there. I go to Bible study with him every week, and it's always interesting to have his take on what other people say, as well as what he thinks himself. So I've enjoyed the relationship with Merv.
I'm Joe Lucas, and I'm the newest kid on the block probably, and met Merv I'm part of the early bird breakfast bunch too. And we discovered 2 days ago that there are 4 of us at that table whose birthdays are in 1941, who were born in 1941. So we'll be celebrating all year. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
I'm Darcy Reese, and my parents were on the call committee at Prince of Peace Church, and thankfully talked Merv and Jackie into taking that call position and be the lead pastor at Prince of Peace. And through that, I had the opportunity then to be able to babysit Deanna and Noel and Chip, and I feel like the Thompsons are my family.
And I'm Kurt Reese, and I met Merv through dating and marrying Darcy. And I was always amazed at how I was the subject matter of a lot of Merv's sermons when he talked about sin and sinners. But truly, I did pay a lot of attention to his sermons. They've impacted our lives. And I remember one in particularly where he said, you know, if you save 10, give 10, and live on 80%, you'll always be wealthy. And I came home and I thought about that, and I said to Darcy, I said, you know, Merv said, if you save 80%, give 10, and live on 10, we'll really be wealthy. And so we did that for about the first 5 years of our life, and the heat never went on in the house until the morning we woke up and we saw our breath. But no, I did learn a lot from Merv through all the years. Happy birthday, Merv. You want to say that? And this is our daughter, Michaela, and her husband is competing in the national Special Olympics this weekend, so he's not here with us. He's on his way to the dormitories, and we're going to be watching him race this weekend, but Michaela's coming back with us up to Wisconsin tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Gwendolyn, and the invitation said, what did it say, program or stories at 7 o'clock? So that was just, too tempting or whatever, or something couldn't resist. So I wrote a little ode. Yeah, okay. So an ode to Merv, if I don't fall over. Okay, birthday wishes to our friend Merv, an early bird not lacking in nerve. Topics outrageous, laughter contagious, lots of camaraderie for all to observe. Merv regales us each morning with humor, great stories, and maybe a rumor. Always good for a laugh and sometimes a gaffe. Not too bad for an aging boomer. So we thank you for this invitation to join in your celebration. The years have flown by, but still time to fly. Remember, there are no limitations. So, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yes. And many more, and I look forward to
Lots of breakfast.
There you go.
Yeah.
We felt that we should do this to let family and friends know really what happens at the breakfast table every morning.
Yeah.
Merv, for almost 18 months, I have sat at the breakfast table with you and our other early bird friends. No one has any idea what will be discussed, or who will be talked about, or which old or new resident will make an appearance. But one thing is assured, you will certainly have a variety of information to share on a multitude of subjects, such as past music scenes, your Norwegian heritage, the travels you have made, and the places you have visited. Also, if there is something that doesn't come to your mind right away, your phone is always handy for you to read info to us or show us a picture. And oh yes, the puns and funny remarks you have aimed at many of us have kept us all entertained with hilarity. I consider it an honor, a joy, and a pleasure to know you. Happy 85th birthday, Mervin.
Thank you.
Hi everybody, Chris Thompson. I am Merv's favorite nephew, mostly because I'm the only nephew here and I can make that case, but happy to be here from Wisconsin and representing our extended family, but I've known Merv all my life.
Mark, do you want to just say hi?
Sure. Are you able?
Sure, I'm able. Don't turn off anything. I'm Mark Thompson, Merv's younger brother, and just turned 80, so that was a big deal for me.
Mark, you're blurry.
Oh, no, don't touch anything.
I didn't touch it.
Just let him stay blurry.
I've been blurry all my life. And so way back when, Merv was my athletic advisor and counselor, and would take me out and throw fastballs. He was 4 years older than I was, throwing fastballs. I was the catcher. Scared the living daylights out of me. And then in football, he let me play along with his older friends, which helped me later on in my football time. And he didn't play hockey, he played basketball, but I was out there in the driveway rebounding and throwing it back to him so that he could develop his athletic skills. So I owe a lot to Merv from young and all the way up. Thank you, Merv.
Okay, thanks everybody. It was great to hear who you all are. What we have planned is my dad requested that family share a story about him, and so we're gonna go from youngest to oldest, and then you'll hear a few words from my dad, and then Hant's gonna sing. So that's gonna be awesome. So we're gonna start, are you ready to start, Ethan? So we're gonna start with Ethan, and you wanna introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Ethan. I'm Nolan and Ann's youngest child and the youngest of the grandkids, obviously, since I'm starting. But for those that don't know me, it's nice to meet you all. For those that do know me, they might remember that growing up, we were kind of trying to like find my niche, especially in sports, since I am a little bit taller, and I was just involved in a lot of different activities. So I probably did like 12 different sports, multiple different plays, like multiple different clubs, and my grandpa was kind of just the like unofficial chauffeur for me. He went to like all of my events, which was very kind, and I definitely appreciated the ride every time. But I want to talk a little bit more about like something that I was brought to by him and my grandma, and actually all of the grandkids kind of went to this with them, but it was the Children's Theater, and we went there like a lot of times actually. I think like I've seen multiple different plays, like from Frog and Toad to the Buccaneers to even like Shrek the Musical, which multiple people don't even know is an actual thing. I was one of those people beforehand, but there was one time that I remember that we went to a play, and it was actually like an interactive play. So the audience was part of the cast, and this was, I think it was for like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. My brother was there. And they had my grandparents and my brother and I like running around, jumping, getting yelled at randomly by them, and like crouching down, just doing a bunch of different physical things. And I remember there was like one moment that I looked at my grandpa and I thought, he is probably just absolutely not loving this right now. He's probably, like, it's Wednesday night and we're running around the back of a theater. And it's probably not his cup of tea, but I do remember that Grandpa the whole time, like, was smiling, never once complained. And that's kind of something that I've noticed throughout the years, is Grandpa's positivity throughout all of our different events. He is always putting on like a giant smile. He is really never one to complain, and that's something that like hopefully I can take forward and like adopt into my life going forward. I'm starting a new school, so I'm sure there will be some different activities or just different moments where I'm not, you know, super comfortable. So I hope that going forward I can just kind of like harness some of that positivity, put on a smile, not really complain, because I think he, in that moment at that play, knew how much it meant to my brother and I and how much of a blast that we were having, so he definitely just like powered through like a champ. So that's something that I remember. And I mean, all the plays were meaningful, but that was one that definitely stuck with me. So thanks, Grandpa.
Hey guys, I'm Mervin Thompson. I'm the next oldest grandkid. I'm son of Ann and Noel and grandson to the birthday boy right there. And I think kind of like what Ethan said, I played in a league when I was a little younger, a soccer league, and it was at the McMurray Fields across town, if you remember, and my parents worked and everything, and so he kind of drove me to all the games and games and practices, and that in itself is already kind of special, you know, having two grandparents that really love you and want to show up for you and drive you to things. And it's, you know, I'm very blessed that they didn't just want to come to the games. You know, he drove me to practices, he stayed the whole time, and he drove me home. And so, but the main thing I wanted to talk about was, you know, during that few years that he drove me, I got to know Grandpa pretty well, and our drives we would talk about anything and everything. And so he showed me a lot of really cool music. We loved, you know, 50s jams. He showed me a lot of Elvis I had never heard, Chuck Berry, and we kind of bonded over our mutual love of that. And I really liked that time because I feel like I got to know my grandpa a lot better, and he would just tell me things about his life. He would tell me when songs would come out, what years in school you were, which I thought was really cool and kind of blew my mind, you know. When we were live in 6th grade, when, you know, the next hit Elvis song is coming out. But yeah, I was able to be open with him. I asked him any question that would pop into my brain, anything I was curious about, and I really cherished that time. And sometimes I just think about it when I'm in a bad mood, or you know, when I'm driving somewhere, like to a rec soccer game or something. I think, you know, I miss those times where I could be with my grandpa. Yeah, happy birthday, Grandpa.
Hi, I'm Annika. I am Deanna and Neil's youngest daughter, and the next grandchild of Merv. I love that all of our stories are going to have some similarities, I think, and mine also involves a car ride with my grandpa. But when I was in high school, my best friend and I had just a huge obsession with a local band from the Twin Cities. And this band played shows primarily in St. Paul and Minneapolis that we would go to. But my grandpa found out that this band was playing in Des Moines, Iowa, where he has some connections, works at a church there, and has an apartment where he stays. And he very generously offered to drive my friend and I to this concert in Iowa and let us stay in his friend's apartment in Iowa. And that is such one of my best memories from high school is going to that show. And he brought us to the concert, sat at a restaurant next door to the concert venue and waited while we went to this show. And he clearly was so invested, like both Evan and Ethan said, so invested in supporting our interests and our passions, and was at every softball game, every choir concert, every piano recital, just so supportive of us. But something else that I've really learned from Grandpa Merv is, while he was supporting all of our passions, he's also very dedicated to his own interests and own passions, and like is very good at modeling to us how important it is to have things that bring you joy in your life. And Grandpa loves music, he loves writing, he loves history, he loves his family, and all of those things just fill his life. And I think that is something that I really admire, is that through his entire life he's had those passions and interests and has continued pursuing those. And I think that's something I hope to do as well, is to be able to have all of those lifelong interests that bring me a lot of joy.
Okay, hi everybody. My name's Surya. I'm the oldest of us right here. Anna Noel's oldest. And I think, honestly, it seems like we have kind of a theme with our stories today, but
We didn't plan.
No, we did not plan. But I could probably mention a lot of stories that involve Grandpa, but one that really comes to mind is when I was in college at St. Olaf. I was pre-med and I was working, kind of doing whatever I could to get into medical school. So I ended up working, and he's going to know this story, but I ended up working in a lab where I worked with crickets and flies. And it was the most disgusting thing I have ever done. And Grandpa just got such a kick out of all my stories of, you know, wrestling the crickets and just being so horrified every day in the lab. And he just thought it was the funniest thing. And so Grandpa, being the jokester he is, one day showed up at my house with his buddy Holly and the crickets record, which, you know, it was just so on brand at the time. And, you know, it started out as a joke, but I ended up moving to Pennsylvania for medical school. And I, especially in my first year when I was doing my master's, I was getting to know the place. I was spending a lot of time, you know, studying in my apartment, didn't know a lot of people. And I would get homesick, and I would find myself playing this record every time I got homesick, and it just kind of brought me back, and it felt like a tangible way to connect to Grandpa and my family, and just, you know, made it a little bit easier. And over the past few years, all throughout medical school, I found myself playing this record if I'm feeling sad or homesick or, you know, just missing my grandparents. And so what started out as a joke became something actually very sweet and sentimental, and I think that just speaks to Grandpa and, you know, his heart. And I think his love of music is something that I think has been really cool to see like take place in all of the different grandkids in different ways. And it's been fun to see kind of how we bring that into our own lives and make that, you know, a part of our personalities and our lives. And it's been a big part of our family and our gatherings, and so that's something I'm very thankful for. And you know, his jokes too. That's another thing. But yeah, we love you, Grandpa. Happy birthday.
Hi, Grandpa. Happy birthday. I'm sorry that I missed your party yesterday, but I am excited that you are turning 85 and that you are still here with us and so capable. My memory that I would like to share is about how fun it has been to be your editor for the past several years and to learn so much about your life through the stuff you've written that you have sent me to edit. It's been lovely to learn about your times on the farm with your grandparents and you know, the ways that growing up in St. Paul looked different in your era than it did in mine. And I also want to say how grateful I've been for how supportive you've been of all of my writing, and that you see writing as something we have in common, and that you have been so supportive and eager to, you know, see my work come out into the world, and how many times you have sent me, you know, a $20 bill with a Post-it note on it that says "for your book," and how much that has meant to me. So yeah, thank you for that. Love you. Happy birthday.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Dad. Happy 85th. I just wanted to say to you, when I think of you, I think of sacrifice and proud and also love. So the sacrifice part is when Noel and I were dating, we went to a Sri Lankan restaurant and I was so excited. But I saw you were struggling to eat the spicy food and you sacrificed that for me to be together. And the second part of, well, that's one of them. I'll keep it short. And the proud part is that you're always proud of your grandkids. So when you were in the clinic with UTI problem, you remember? I was rushing to come to you and the nurse said, oh, he's with someone inside talking. And so I stood outside. I'm like, oh, must be important. And then I heard you were going mile an hour about each and every grandkids. And I said, no, this is not a medical conversation. So you are always proud of them and we thank you for that. And the love is that is you're always there for me. I did not have a full relationship with my dad and you took that part. And a quick story is that I told that Jackie's birthday too is when Suri was born. I had cesarean, so I was in and out with pain medication. And one point I woke up kind of confused and nobody was around but you were sitting there and reading. And I got the feeling of a daughter seeing a father. And I felt like I'm in good hands. And so thank you so much for being in our lives. And we love you so much. Many more years to come. Happy birthday. Love you.
All right. Good job, everybody. Great stories. Merv, you're putting a lot of miles on your cars with these stories, I think. Mine involves some driving too, but just to kind of step back a bit, I want to just thank everybody for coming. What a joyous occasion, and thanks so much. It's fun to see. You start to think of an accumulation of a life and just all the different pockets. You have friends and family, and it's fun to hear everybody's stories and how you're connected to Dad. So thanks for making it today. We really appreciate it. When I was younger, Prince of Peace was roaring, and there were 10,000 members of Prince of Peace. And I remember going and just being overwhelmed on Sundays when people would come up to me and all these people I didn't know, right? They'd say, Noel, we know you from your dad, the way he talks about you. And he was larger than life, and it was a kind of an interesting position to be in for both my mom and myself and Deanna. And so, his persona was kind of on a little bit of a pedestal at the time when I was younger. And then, as I got to get it more in sports, get into other things, he started to coach me, and that persona kind of came down to earth, and I got closer to him in just a personal level. But there was always this piece where he was in charge of a very large institution that had a lot of people that came there for very important reasons, and he made a huge impact on people's lives. So it was kind of this a little bit of a wall when you're a young boy and that's your dad. But one story, I went to St. Olaf College, and Deanna was a senior at the time. I was a first year, and it was a real bad snowstorm, like the worst snowstorm I've ever driven in. And I had to get back for a Monday test in the morning. And Dad had been preaching that Sunday, and he was exhausted, tired. I think he took a nap. And I said, I got to get back. I'm going to head back. And he looked outside and said, somebody needs to drive with you or follow you or something. It's so treacherous. No cell phones. So we made our way down to St. Olaf from Lakeville at the time, and I remember it taking about 2 hours to get down to Northfield from there. And that Highway 19, you couldn't see the highway going down there. But the richest part of all of it was we got to my dorm room, and it was a tiny dorm room. And he walks in, and I'm like, Dad, you can't drive back now. It's pitch dark, it's snowing out. And he looks at my bunk beds, and my roommate's in there. And he says, I'm heading back. So he gets in the car, drives back, and I think, we probably talked a week later, and we got back okay? Yeah, I got back okay. But, this day and age, it would have been, we're tracking each other and calling immediately. So it just kind of showed that he was, he was there for me in a lot of different ways. I certainly appreciate it and love you. But one more part of that is, in the last few years. So I work in St. Paul at Travelers Insurance, but part of my territory, I manage a team of people in different parts of the various region, and part of it is Iowa. And so in West Des Moines, our Travelers office is 1 block from Hope Church, where my dad is. So it's kind of a small irony, but so he and I have been able to go down several times now together, and he goes off to work and I go to work, and it's 4 hours we get out in the car on the way down and 4 hours back, and you don't get that very often with any of your parents. So I certainly appreciate and cherish those times. So love you, Dad. Happy birthday.
So I'm Neil Peterson, Merv's son-in-law, favorite son-in-law. You stole my joke, but that's because I am the only one. Happy birthday, Merv. Merv's birthday is right around Father's Day, and when it comes to fathers, I think I hit the jackpot, because I have a great father and a great father-in-law. The 3 of us, my father, Glenn, Merv, and I, or our interests, I should say, make a pretty good 3-circle Venn diagram. I told John there would be math here, so. The 3 of us share a number of interests that all overlap in the middle of that Venn diagram, but each of us also, as a pair, share interests that aren't quite as important to the third person. Those overlapping interests have really helped us develop strong relationships over the last 37 years. 3 years ago, my father had a stroke that changed his life. Excuse me. And every week for the last 3 years, Merv has written a letter to my father and my mother, filled with things about their shared interests, things like love of family and their histories, love of their children and grandchildren and all of the activities, love of God, worship, and good hymns. Those weekly letters have been a real gift and a ministry to my parents, and they mean an awful lot to Deanna and to me as well. But, okay, so easier things. Merv's and my separate overlapping interests in the Venn diagram include sports. All kinds of sports. Baseball, basketball, football, hockey, golf, you name it. Merv and I enjoy talking together about sports. We enjoy watching sports together, reading some of the same books about sports, and lately texting about sports. We're watching separately when all other members of the family have smartly gone to bed already. Merv and I have attended many sporting events together over the years. Some highlights for me, at least, would include St. Olaf football games, playoff victories by both the Timberwolves and the Twins, and golf's Ryder Cup, just to name a few. Merv, I look forward to many more birthdays and more sporting events in the future. Happy birthday.
So I'm Deanna, and I have written remarks like my husband. We share liking to write things down. So many of you likely know that my dad begins each of his sermons quoting Psalm 19, verse 14. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. As a preacher, he's offered up millions of words about the Word. And in his roles as writer, historian, friend, sibling, son, grandfather, father, he's had a lifelong obsession with words, reading them. I always was amazed at his speed reading skills when I was a child. I would watch him devour an entire book in about 15, 20 minutes. He writes these words and he speaks them out loud. Those of you who've been recipients of his letters or his emails know that he's also obsessed with how words come together to make a story. Some of you might know he wrote a book quite a long time ago called Let Me Tell You a Story. It's about the stories and the parables of Jesus, where Dad uses his history skills to set those stories in context, to make connections to how the stories of the widow with the coin or the one about the shepherd finding the one lost sheep can guide our living today. My dad's delight in words and the stories they make was shared with Noel and me as children. We took many, many road trips before entertainment systems played movies to help kids while away the hours on the road. To help us pass the time through Nebraska and Montana, Dad took to making cassette tapes of himself reading stories to us. But reading the stories as written apparently was a bit too dull for Dad. So he took to changing the characters' names to names of people we knew, including Noel and me. The most memorable of these cassette tape stories was Dad's rendition of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the book version of the 1968 film starring Dick Van Dyke and Sally Ann Howes. The story centers around a brother and a sister who become obsessed with a race car that crashes during a race. When they hear it's going to the junkyard, they implore their widowed father to save it. He finds a way to find enough money to buy it. This widower also has quite an imagination, and he invents a story about a flying car and his kids, himself, and a wealthy heiress all flying in it together, but then always threatened by the devious child snatcher who threatens to derail the whole plot. So Noel and I loved Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the movie, and read the book version over and over again. Then for one of our long trips, we listened to half a dozen cassette tapes filled with the story of Deanna and Noel and their father, Merv, a wealthy heiress, Jackie, and the devious child snatcher, Bob Hoff. And other familiar characters that I no longer remember. We knew the story almost by heart, and all of us in the car would hold our breath for each new character to be introduced. The words of his mouth and the meditation of his heart have been acceptable in your sight, O Lord. In addition to decades of preaching at Prince of Peace and several other faith communities, the words of Dad's mouth and the meditation of his heart also served as the preaching for significant and joyous times in the life of our family. Neil's and my wedding, the baptism of each of our children at the Tverberg family reunions. Dad's words always circled around similar themes. The love of God made manifest in Jesus Christ surrounds us, upholds us, and we love because God has first loved us. The words of Dad's mouth and the meditations of his heart were also preached in the saddest of times at countless funerals, including most likely the hardest for him, his own father's funeral, honoring the request my grandpa made of my dad before he died. Even as he's preached much less in recent years, the words of his mouth and the meditation of his heart haven't really slowed down too much. His obsession with words and the way they come together to form stories that shape our lives have been channeled into books like Changing the Beat, the 50s, When Music Rocked the World, a memoir about his childhood and early adult years, a history of Hope Lutheran, a history of Prince of Peace, and his current project, a history of St. Anthony Park, the St. Paul neighborhood where he and his siblings grew up. The words of his mouth and meditations of his heart are how my dad connects to and shows love for the people, the places, and the things he cares about the most. And we're all better for the many, many words you've shared with us over your 8.5 decades of life. When I retired last year, I had to stop using my St. Olaf email address as my primary way of communicating. This change, sending messages to my Gmail account instead of my St. Olaf account, was challenging for Dad. It took a number of tries to get it right. But when I sent him a message from my Gmail account saying, "You got it," his response was, "Great. Now we will be connected forever." The writer of the book of Revelation offers a vision for life beyond this one. Chapter 21 promises a new heaven and a new earth, a place where there's no more crying, no more dying, only light, only love. And as my dad, who has recently devoted lots and lots of words to the topic of heaven, knows, what comes next remains shrouded in mystery. But in the life to come, I could see the Word made flesh surrounding us with beautiful, shimmering words that connect us forever with God and with those we love. Happy 85th birthday, Dad. I love you. Look forward to more words from you in person, over email, via text, and perhaps even in the world to come. Before we have my dad say something, I know there are a couple people here from the breakfast group who had prepared remarks. So I'm going to turn it over to you two before we let my dad have his say.
This is dangerous.
It is. Your turn.
My turn.
Do you want to come to the front?
How long is this going to be? Who said that?
Our sermons?
3 points. Yeah, 3 points. Well, thank you so much. What a incredible thing. I'm overwhelmed, and thank you for all the wonderful comments, and well, I just appreciate it so much. I was thinking about, Mark said I shouldn't go more than an hour and a half. Was that worked out? But I'm a preacher, you know.
Do you think about the book?
I was thinking about voices and about words that Deanna talked about, and the voices that have been so influential in my own life. And so I went through and I kind of thought about that, wrote some stuff down, and I kind of said, okay, I'm going to take the top 10 list of voices in my life. So I will do that. I would begin, the first voice that I heard were those of my parents. I'm a son of a minister and a grandson of a minister. And right from the beginning, I heard from my parents, one way or another, you're going to follow in our legacy. You're going to carry on the family business. You know, that's what your role is. Now, I fought that for a while, but it was in my DNA that I would be a pastor, following my dad and my grandfather. And Mark, how's that go? Leader of the band is, Mark read the song by Dan Fogelberg. I'm just a poor attempt to imitate the man, right? Yeah. So anyway, the first voice I heard right from the beginning, and it wasn't explicit at times, but that is that you're here to follow your dad and your grandfather. And I heard that in my being, and that led me to the direction I went. The second voice that came was in English in high school. Mrs. Danielson was her name. She was a teacher in our academy, and she wrote on one of my papers, I'll never forget it, she said, Mervin, you have a gift for writing. God has given you a gift. You need to develop that gift. Nobody ever said that before. Nobody ever. And then she gave me some assignments, and she said, you've really got to develop that gift. So when I found out in college I was not going to be the next Fred Tarkington, I turned to writing for the most part. I wrote in the newspaper. I was the editor of the yearbook. I wrote Lloyd Svensby was my advisor for a 3-credit course, and I wrote a 100-page paper on the social gospel. So I started writing. And then when sermons is all about writing, you know, there are some people today who could speak extempore, but not me. I have to write it down. And so, but that note from Mrs. Danielson just struck me. Mervin, you have a gift for writing. You need to use that gift. third voice then came. I went to a retreat right before my senior year in college, and I was sitting across the table from this beautiful young lady. Her name was Jackie Morstan. And I thought, wow, I need to get to know her. So when we got back to college, I called her and I said, this is Merv Thompson. Would you meet me at the football game on the weekend? And she said, well, no, I have to take my brother's car home over the weekend. I won't be here. Okay. I called back the next week and I said, would you like to go to the football game with me? And she said, you know, I have to babysit for my sister's children over in Fargo. And I went, oh. I know how to brush off when I'm getting one, right? And I thought, I don't know if I had to call again. Half hour later, the phone rings, and the voice at the other end said, hello, this is Jackie. I found someone to take my place as a babysitter. That was 63 years ago. So that voice became extremely important for me. The next voice then came when we'd been married about 3 months. And Jackie said to me one day, you know, Merv, we've been in Minnesota all our lives. We need to get out of Minnesota and see the country. And I thought, you know, I did what any young husband would do. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Had no idea what to do. About a week later, I'm walking down the seminary and I see on the bulletin board a notice that says, spend a summer in the national park. And I thought, oh. So I signed up for an appointment with the guy, and long story short, we ended up spending 15 months in the national parks. I was a student minister in the Grand Canyon, Shenandoah, the Florida Everglades, and Glacier Park in Montana. And I always say I learned 4 things that shaped me. First thing, I learned how to preach. I had to preach 3 or 4 times a weekend for 15 months, and the sermons were awful, just awful. But you learn. The only way to learn how to preach is to preach. Secondly, I found that not everybody in this world is Lutheran. Imagine, I had to prepare a worship service for people who were not Lutheran. And I'd never done that before. Third thing, we had to go out Saturday night and invite people to church. Now, not everybody wanted to see us, by the way. Some people had big dogs, but we invited it. And from then on, I never had any trouble going out and visiting people when I was a pastor, which I did a lot of. And then the last thing, I had services that were almost all outdoors. And I thought, I really like outdoor worship. You know, I really like to be outside. So when I went to Burnsville the first time, I drove in on Highway 13, and the first thing I saw was the Lucky Twin Drive-In Theater. And I said, we're going to have worship there, which we did. So that was the voice of Jackie saying, we need to get out of Minnesota. And that led us to them. And then the voices of my family. When Deanna, I sit next to her first grade teacher and her kindergarten teacher on Wednesday morning at coffee, and when we went to see the teacher very often, or with Deanna, she'd say, this is my dad. This is my dad. And Noah would say, this is my dad. And that always was, and we're still doing it. You know, the voice of the children. This is my dad. Although most of the time now is I'm Deanna's father, or I'm Noel's father. But even recently, last week, Noel calls and he said, let's have lunch at Cecil's. Okay. Deanna, after church, said, come over to our house for lunch. The voice of my children is just the most precious voice. And so it's just, anyway, every time I hear the voices, I'm so moved by that. And then my grandkid, Linnea, couldn't be here, but Linnea used to invite me all the time to things that, Grandpa, I'm going to be in the history project at the University of Minnesota. Can you come? Grandpa, I'm going to be in a concert. Can you come? Grandpa, I'm going to be in the Phi Beta Kappa at Luther College. Could you come? Of course, of course, of course. You know, and then Annika, you know, Grandpa, I'm heading on the softball team. Would you come? And they'd sit on the bench and sing, "We are the Bluebells, the mighty, mighty Bluebells," right? And then Annika would say, "Our ensemble group from Central High School is singing at the St. Paul Hotel before Christmas. Would you come?" Yeah, we'll come. And just that voice. And then Surya, we have a grandparent mass at Cretan High School. Would you come, and you and Grandma come to the grandparent mass? And well, of course. And when you graduate from St. Paul, would you come? You know. And then when you graduated from medical school, well, you can't come, but you can watch it online. It's out east, but. And then Evan, he would say, would you come to my track meet? I'm doing the long jump today over at Highland Park. So we go to track meets and watch Evan. And then he said, would you come down to Stout State in Menominee? He said, I want to show you where I'm taking my engineering classes. So we went to Stout and he gave us a tour of that whole thing. And then Ethan, I have a funny line about Ethan. We're driving, Jackie and I were driving with him one day after nursery school, and we're driving 185th going toward Prior Lake, and he's in the back seat, and all of a sudden he says, Grandma, does Mother Nature live in those woods over there? I don't know if we ever answered that to ourselves. But Ethan has invited us to, I play basketball. Would you come? And the award ceremony, I'm going to get a science award. Can you come to that? Of course. And now he starts medical school. And so we just are so happy I'm so happy to hear the voices of my kids and my grandkids. Those are wonderful to hear. And then the Bob Hoff story. I was a pastor in North Minneapolis, and I went to a Bible camp meeting. There are 60 pastors there. I sit in the back row, and I sit next to a guy, and he leans over and he says, do you know a youth director you could find? I'm looking for a youth director. And I said, no, I really don't. But if I hear of somebody, I'll let you know. So the next day, my brother Mark called me. Mark calls me, and he says, I'm not happy with my job as a youth director at this church in Bloomington. I said, well, funny you should mention that. There's a church in Burnsville that's looking for a youth director. He says, where's Burnsville? I said, I have no idea. I think it's south of Bloomington somewhere. And 2 weeks later, he calls me up, and here was the word. I'm the new youth director at Prince of Peace Lutheran Church. Wow, okay. 2 years later, they're looking for a pastor, and Bob Hoff on the call committee says, can we get Mark Thompson to come back? And someone else says, no, he's still in school. So someone else says, he has a brother, doesn't he? So I was second choice for 21 years because of Mark being the youth director and getting to know the Hoff family and many others. The next one was, I was thinking of retiring, and I went to a conference, and I sat across from this tall guy. Never seen him before, but I'd heard about him. His name was Mike Householder, and let me back up. I missed one. I should have my manuscript. I had a friend named Rube Brailer who was kind of my mentor, and Rube always had a funny line. He says, it says somewhere in the book of Ecclesiastes that the older you are, the closer the Lord leads you to your lake home. I always thought about that. And Jackie and I had a lake home when we were first married, and then we sold it when we moved in next to Rich and Kay. And then we said, someday we're going to come back. So we went back, and we built a new lake home. And we moved up there, and I got a job at a church in Detroit Lakes, and Rick came and spoke one of our banquets, and we moved up to the lake, and we had some wonderful family gatherings at the lake. We have big picture boards in my place and Jackie's place, and with pictures of all of our grandkids up at the lake, and just so many great memories. And Big Pine Lake near New York Mills and Perham and Detroit Lakes. So that was a very important part of our life. And then I was getting ready to retire, and Glenn Nickelmo had a couple of interims that he said, I lined up interviews for you at those. Then I went to a conference and sat next to Mike Householder, and he said, why don't you come down to Iowa and join us? What? That's not close to my lake home at all. But he prevailed, and I went down, and I've been there 23 years on the staff of a church there. I've gotten to the point right now where I like to say that I pretend to work and they pretend to pay me. But my name is still there on the list. But I write a letter every week to the senior pastor. That's my role right now, is to be kind of a letter writer. But those were wonderful 23 years. I enjoyed it. It's very much like Prince of Peace was when I was there. And the nice thing is I didn't have anybody reporting to me. I didn't have to go to the church council meeting, the executive committee, the finance committee, and the personnel committee. None of them. So it was really kind of great. So, and then the ninth one was about 5 years ago, Deanna called me one day and she said, Dad, I think you and Mom should move closer to us over here. And she said, Mom needs more help and you really should move closer. And there's a building in here called Presbyterian Homes, and we have friends who are there. Harry and Polly are here and hear really good things about it. So I'll line up a tour for you. So I came over here and Deanna and I toured the building, and so I put my name in for the building across the street, and that would have been a couple more years. Well, about a week later, Diana called me and said, the exact unit you signed up over there is available in this building. Somebody just backed out. Really? So I jumped in the car, came over here, and I'll take it. So we moved in here, and then when Jackie needed more help, she's about a mile away here at the Elton Memory Care place, and it's only 5 minutes for me and 5 minutes for Deanna. So it's really convenient, but it was such a good move for us to come here. And you can see by the friends that are here that there's a community here, which makes it really, really good. And then the last voice is one I hope to hear soon. Not too soon, but soon. Deanna mentioned it, but I expect to see her soon, and welcome. We've prepared a place for you, and I did that course on what happens to us when we die, and some of this is done with tongue in cheek because we really don't know, as Deanna said, it's a mystery, but I kind of got set off by John 14 where it says, in my Father's house are many rooms. And I said, I don't want to be in a room in heaven, I can just see a room with a window air conditioner. No. And then Roger Miller's song, rooms to let 50 cents, no pool, no pet, 4 by 8 room, yeah. I thought, no. So I went back to the King James Version in 1611, where it says, in my Father's house are many mansions. Ha-ha! I like that better. In my Father's house are many mansions. So I hope that voice says to me, we've got your mansion ready for you. I used to call on a woman named Ina, and Ina was dying of cancer. And she told me, I have this vision of a round house and I'm climbing the stairs, you know, and she described it, the colors and the textures and the landscaping and this beautiful roundhouse. Have you ever seen a round? No. It's right. And the last time I visited her, she said, I'm on the top step. I'm going to go into the roundhouse. She died that night. And I thought, well, that's as good a description as any. That's a mansion. That's not a room. So I hope that, then the other thing I hope to hear the voice saying, you know, there's a banquet for you to join. Yeah. Remember the old threshing bees back on the farm when you were with your grandparents? This is like that, only better. You know? And so come in, your family and your friends are waiting for you at this great banquet. So, and I tell that because, as I told Pat and John, I had 10, there were 5 of my friends in college. We roomed together through college, and we all got married right after college, and I'm the last one of the 10, still standing, you know, living independently. 2 are in memory care. And so, you know, so I'm 85, and you like to think we're going to live as long as some of my friends here who are 90 and 95, but you don't know. So it won't be too long before I hear the voice saying, you know, we prepared a place for you. Deanna asked, and Noel asked us to put our funeral services together some years ago, so we did, and in there, of course, we had Han Hansen, who worked together for 20 years. His signature song, I think you sang it at Deanna's wedding too, didn't you? Yes. And have him sing it, and I thought, you know, as I was thinking about this, you know, there's a good chance I won't be at my funeral service. And looking at the age here, probably some of you won't be there either. So why do we wait? So let's ask Han Hansen to sing Make My Life a Candle.
This is Make My Life a Candle. A candle is a really interesting thing because it's not very, let's just call a candle humble. It's a pretty humble piece of machinery. And the interesting thing, I think, is that Merv has chosen to live his life like a candle. Not like a flamethrower, not like a forest fire, not like a Bunsen burner, but a candle. Great deal of humility, not calling attention to oneself, allowing the Spirit to work in ways that only the Spirit can work, and trusting that things will work out, that things will be okay. So, having said that, should I? Make my life a candle, a light to shine through the darkest night, and make my life a candle, a flame to melt even the coldest heart. Let me burn with the fire of love for your world. Let me glow with desire for love in your world. Make my life a candle, and you will light the way. Every day you will light the way. Every day, and then everyone will see you along the way. You will light the way. Every day, and then everyone will see you along their way. Every day. my life a candle, a light of love shining from my heart, and make my life a candle, a flame to warm cold and icy hands, and let me burn with the fire of love so pure. Let me glow with desire for love in your world. Make my life a candle, and you will light the way. Every day you will light the way. Every day, and then everyone will see you along the way. You will light the way. Every day, and then everyone will see you along the way. Every day.
Oh, gives me goosebumps every time. Nice job, man. Well, that's kind of concludes the little celebration we wanted to have. Well, how late do we have this room? 8. 10:30. 10:30? We have it till 8, but thanks again so much for coming. I know some came from closer than others. Thank you to Mark for videotaping everything, and Chris for coming to help set up early as well. And then also just for all of you that drove a long distance, and I know in some cases there was a lot of traffic out there tonight, so thank you for doing that. I guess the one thing we'd be remiss not saying, we miss having Mom here tonight. She's a big part of our lives, obviously, and it's hard not having her here. So, but happy birthday, Dad! So glad we could celebrate on your behalf, and thanks again.
Perfect. All right, 1, 2, 3. Love it.
Okay, me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark. There.
All right.